Because of my father, I got to know Lee Strasberg's daughter, Susan, who encouraged me to study with her father, which I didn't really want to do. But, you know, I had to do something. So I started studying with Lee. And after about 2 months, and I sat right behind Marilyn Monroe, who also was in his classes. She would sit with a scarf around her and a trench coat, and it was hard to believe I was actually sitting behind her. She never talked. She never did anything.
You never talked to her?
Oh, I talked to her, sure, but she never spoke in class or performed.
What was
she was too scared. Like a child, like a fragile, vulnerable child who, on the one hand, thought she was a celestial being, and on the other hand, felt today's the day that I'll be proven a fraud. It was interesting to know her.
Marilyn is a new film out at the moment about a very, very good movie, and I interviewed Michelle Williams about it last week. What do you think the biggest misconception about Marilyn was?
I was very, very drawn to her. To me, she was like a golden child. She radiated light and vulnerability, and I think that she was attracted to me as she used to gravitate a little bit to me at parties because she knew that I was not very secure either, and she was fragile, and I was very touched by her. Michael Jackson also, someone who was fragile. You know, both of them had these beyond famous, iconic images, and yet in their innermost selves, they were very, very vulnerable, damaged people. And it was the tension between those two things, perhaps, that made them so brilliant, each in their own way.
Now, how does this work? You knew Marilyn Monroe. She must have been much older.
I did. You know, I decided to be an actress because I was in class with Lee Strasberg, and sitting next to me was Marilyn Monroe.
Now, Lee Strasberg was famous for
the actor studio, the method. He kind of brought the method from Russia.
What does that mean when people will say the method?
It means you use your own personal experiences. You learn different kind of exercises to bring up things from your own life.
Right.
I don't really use it anymore.
Right.
But at the time,
it was useful.
Being Henry Fonda's daughter, I needed a technique just to say to myself, you know, I'm working because I have a technique.
Right.
But Marilyn was as scared as I was. I mean, she never did get up and do a scene. She was too scared, and she'd sit there with no makeup and a little babushka around her head, very quiet.
Right.
You know, after class, and it took me a long time to do a scene too, but after class we'd go down and go out, and there she was in the street, you know, with dark glasses and no makeup, hailing a cab, and nobody knew who she was.
Well, what was her deal? I mean, you knew her, you observed her. Scared. Scared of what? Was it insecurity?
No, it's the odd, the strange thing about celebrity is, on the one hand, she knew she was the most famous woman in the world and the sexiest and most sought after. On the other hand, she always thought, this is the day they're going to find out I'm a fraud.
Right.
And so we had the same press agent, and he would tell me that sometimes she'd be 2 hours late to a press conference because she'd be literally getting sick.
Yes, worried about performing in front of.
Worried about it.
Now, I wonder if. And I don't know anything about this either, but I wonder if today, if a person had that problem, we could find help for that person.
Well,
you know what I mean? Because there's no reason.
There's always a pill.
Yeah, but well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
They have made remarkable advancements. I'm not trying to be stupid about it, but you know what I mean?
Therapy now.
Some therapy?
Is very different than it was then, and she probably could have gotten help.
Get a diagnosis and maybe a prescription, because she was, not just from this information, but everything you read about the poor woman, she was tormented, for God's sake.
Yeah, yeah.
And how...
I watched her film Some Like It Hot. That was the first time I met her, and she couldn't get her lines, but I just remember she walked off the set, you know, where all the lights are there, and she walked off, and as she walked towards me, it's like she was carrying the light inside her.
Yeah.
There was something so incredible about her. She was luminous, and as she came up to me and began to talk, it was like a tiny little girl.
Yeah.
I loved her.
Did you like her acting, or did you like her more as a person?
I liked her persona. I loved I think one of the great things about her is that she was loved by men and women, because we sensed her vulnerability, and the men sensed something else.
And well, Yes, all part of the same package. But in those days, in those days, she was physically kind of the iconic sex image on the screen.
Yes.
And the sensuality of it, obviously.
Yeah. I remember at a party at Lee Strasberg's, she walked in and the men would start to shake.
Yeah.
With desire, of course, but she came up to me. You know, it's like she felt safe because we were little girls together, kind of. Yeah.